Hey woodworkers. Okay, so I have my substrate prepared. I cut off the horns as we talked about here and here, filled in with Bondo in the areas that I needed to. Also took this to the bandsaw so that I have most of the sharp corners off. I am going to leave a little bit of extra length on this particular design, which will make sense when I get to that video, but I'm anticipating having some tear out on these outside edges when I smooth out this curve. So instead of cutting it down to final length and then doing that, I want to avoid tear out when I can. Okay, so preparation of veneer work at this point. So this is correctly facing, so it's right side up. I've got it labeled here top, so I have what I need. I've got veneer that has been flattened. This is going to be on the show faces of my top. On the underside, however, I absolutely need to veneer something down here. I could go with this super pretty veneer, and there's probably no good reason to not do that. Yeah. I could do this out of one piece, so you can see it. I can do this out of one piece and then cut that there, and no problem. Sometimes we get into a situation as woodworkers where this now becomes precious and we don't want to waste this on the bottom side. We want to use this on the elements that are going to be shown. And so I get that. If you have enough of this material and you want to do it on the bottom, great. If you don't have any of this material, then great. That solves that chemistry for us. We're going to go to Plan B. Plan B is going to be more of a garden variety straight grain mahogany here. This particular piece has paper backing, and so I'm going to use this on the bottom side. The paper isn't going to make any difference at all for what it is we're doing, but that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so I don't really care about grain orientation here. I just need to cover the elements of, or the substrate I should say. So I'm going to use the top edge here. I should draw it where you can see it. The top edge here, and I'm going to scribe a line that is well outside of what it is I need for getting this thing down. And you'll notice that I've inverted the veneer so that it's really where it needs to be. Alright, so this is the shape. We talked a lot about cutting veneer, veneer saws, table saws. I'm going to show you one other method for doing this, but I find the fastest way to trim this veneer is with a sharp pair of shears. And so that's what I'm going to do, especially with the paper backing. It's very difficult for this stuff to start to split. So if you have sharp shears or scissors, you're ready to go. Alright. Clean that up later. Alright, so this is here. This is going to go in this area. I've got plenty of material all the way around, so if this gets shifted when I'm gluing up in the bag, vacuum bag, then no problem, no harm, no foul there. So at this point, this is in the way, so I need to get rid of you. That's how we do. Alright, so in looking at the top, I want to create some type of a sunburst pattern on these things, and so I need to understand what it is I need to cut this material out of in order to get this to look the way I want it to. So if I had a nice consistent arc, then it would be very easy for me to create a template. And this template I could center here on the back, on the center point. I can establish where this thing looks like, and then at this point, as long as I've measured this all the way over, starting and stopping on these reference points, then that's great. The problem that arises with that look is that if I were to create a template here, and I started cutting all of my veneers to mimic this. I have a change of one of those dimensions, so the length of the veneer from here to here is going to be much shorter than it will be out here to here in the perimeters. And so what that's going to translate to is the width that I have in the center is going to look like that. It's going to be this dimension there to there. But then as I rotate this thing around, that no longer works. And so now where I need to cut this is going to, if I were to continue this thing over, yeah, it doesn't work. It's going to be much larger. And so it starts to make this very, very busy and, to my aesthetic, seem very unbalanced. So I don't want to do this template thing for designing or developing dimensions for the veneer. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to calculate out a little bit of what this is going to look like with some dividers. And so I have these. I've already established my starting and stopping points, but I want to have a central wedge or pie shape here in the center. I wouldn't want to have the bisecting line here have a wedge shape starting there and there. I think that it's, again, it's just a little bit busy, and I just don't love it. So one full piece here in the center, full, and I want to terminate on the outside edges with as close to a full piece as possible. And when I say full piece, again, I'm talking about the dimensions that are going to be present on this arc line. And so by using dividers, then I can start to chalk this or mark this thing out and really understand what it is I'm trying to do here. So, okay, so with this pair of dividers and my center line in place, I have a nice situation for understanding where these 2 points are going to hit in that final curve. And so if I line up the center line with this little adjustment wheel and my little pivot point, then I walk this thing up, then from here I can start to go over, following the line I just made as well as the curve. Then I'll be able to transfer this over, and so on and so forth. And then that gives me a little bit of a sense of what it is I want to do. So it makes this job much, much simpler. So that's what I've done here. Off camera, this was a lot of tweaking and fiddling. So I'd make some marks here, I would run this thing down the curve, and then realize that I'm way too wide back here, in which case this is going to feel like a small little sliver, or the other option where it doesn't come out to the back edge here at all. So this piece is going to be too small. In order to correct it, it's going to feel bigger than the rest. So that's what I do. I obsess over these things, which maybe nobody will ever know, but I will, and that's welcome to my world. All right. I don't really care what these dimensions are. I know that they're consistent, so I don't need to measure. What I do need to do now is figure out what next steps are. Pardon me. Important diabetes message. Okay, so now that I have those dimensions dialed in, then I can start to identify what part of this veneer I want to use in order to get those pieces. So the first thing I want to do is select a nice area somewhere in this veneer, and they're all pretty fantastic. So it's going to be, I'm going to be hard pressed to choose a better or worse piece. What I am going to do is start with cutting the center, and just like I traced out the bottom piece of veneer, I'm going to do the same here. So I have these elements there and there, got a center point. So now, any straight edge handy, I can start to draw these things in. One more push or example of why having a light color drawing tool makes this piece invaluable. If I were to draw the same exact thing with a dark pencil, number 2, I'm going to have a lot of difficulty tracking that one down. So, alright. So this is the piece that I want, and I'm happy with that. So what I want to do now is just separate. Being pretty generous with where my cuts are. Separating these pieces out. And hopefully you can see that in selecting this piece, I've tried to design this shape so I'm more or less running in the center of where the grain orientation is here. I haven't skewed this so that this termination piece happens here, because that starts to throw off your angles, especially when you start laying out a bunch of these things. The other thing which is really pretty about these pieces are the contrast of this darker area and then some of this lighter piece. So this is something that appears to be closer to the bark of the tree, or the exterior of the circumference of the tree, same over here. I want to have this be fairly consistent as much as possible. To my eye, this is what I want to do. So there's a lot of waste here, but I might be able to use this other side for doing lateral pieces here, but I won't know until I get there. So, okay. So now that I have this piece to start, I'm going to try to cut downhill. So downhill is kind of relative. This is the part that I care about. So I'm going to try to C for care. So all of the grain is running here. This side I don't care about. And that's okay. I'm going to start to cut in this orientation here, which is downhill for the side that I care about. If I get tear out on these other pieces, that's fine, because I don't care about them. And again, pardon me, staying well outside of my pencil line gives me better chances of success. Okay, so that's how I handle this veneer business. We'll do the same over here. Let me cut out the next piece, which is going to be roughly here, and I'll show you how to join these together. Alright, and I want this one to go roughly like that. So, right there, here. I found from years of working in a shop by myself that the more you talk to yourself, the better results you have. And then sound effects are always better. Alright, so right plus 1. And then how long does this need to be? Seems to be roughly that long. Oops, I see a nasty check, which I didn't notice a second ago. And I could work with that. Okay. It's going to give me some difficulty, but I am okay. So I could be using my veneer saw for cutting these pieces, and that's okay. I just feel like these scissors do such a good job of just getting me started. Not obviously a finished edge or cut, but enough to get started. Alright, getting rid of that, getting rid of you, talking to myself. Okay, so I'm not getting rid of those. I'm going to hang on to them just in case. Alright, so this looks pretty great. C also stands for center, which is great. Alright. Now I need to do something to put a seam or join these two pieces. And there's a couple different ways that we've already talked about with this. I have a method that I prefer, which I will get set up, and I'll see you right back here. I'm going to start cutting more of these little wedges, and then I'll start getting to the business of putting them together. So bear with me, I'll see you guys in a bit.